It is a great honor to be present at this very special memorial today and to share some reflections on the life and resistance work of Hannie Schaft, a World War II heroine from my home country of the Netherlands and one of yours, Violette Szabo. Occupation. On May 10, 1940, the Netherlands was invaded by Nazi Germany. Hannie, or Jannetje Johanna Schaft, was a 19-year-old girl with beautiful red hair who grew up in a socially engaged, politically active, but isolated family in Haarlem. She studied law in Amsterdam. When the war broke out, she was deprived of her youth and faced a question far beyond what was expected of her: adapt or resist. Remarkably and courageously, this young woman decided to combat the enemy as one of the very few women to do so. The United Kingdom could have fallen to the same fate 2 months after the occupation of the Netherlands. It was through the courageous Air Force in the Battle of Britain that this disaster was avoided. Violette Elizabeth Szabo, born Bechel, was a beautiful 18-year-old with raven's black hair who worked at the department store Le Bon Marché in Brixton. Partially growing up in Picardy, France, and partially in London, the UK, she was a true European. When she met the French decorated officer Etienne Szabo, of Hungarian descent, they soon became husband and wife. When Etienne set off to Africa to fight the Vichy French, Violette enlisted in the Auxiliary Territorial Service of the British Army in September 41. Character. Both were women. Both were young. Hannie Schaft was exactly 9 months older than Violette. Both were beautiful, passionate, stylish, occupied with their appearance, as can be shown from the way they posed in their photographs. Both were incredibly independent and strong-willed. Both decided to combat the enemy, to defend their country and their beliefs. And both were incredibly brave and persistent. Motivation. When rules against Jewish people in the Netherlands became stricter and stricter, Hannie Schaft decided that she wanted to help her law school friends who were Jewish. So she would go to all kinds of public areas, to bars, to swimming pools, to theaters, to steal identification papers and have them forged by the resistance. When Hannie herself was hindered to continue her studies, she moved back in with her parents in Haarlem, and it was there and then that she decided that she wanted to offer more resistance, if necessary, with weapons. Violette gave birth to a beautiful young girl, Tanja Damaris Desiree Szabo, on June 8, 1942. Etienne was tragically killed during the Second Battle of El Alamein on October 24, 1942, without ever having seen or held his own daughter. Violette decided there and then that she wanted to combat the enemy who had killed her husband and accepted an offer to enroll as a special operations executive, an SOE agent. Training. Under the code name of Hannie, the girl with the red hair signed up with the armed resistance group, the Council of Resistance, with ties to the Communist Party. Hannie received very little training. She was taught how to fire a gun, and then she was sent off into the field. Through code words, she was able to communicate with her comrades during a mission. Violette was commissioned as a section leader of the first 8 nursing yeomanry, Fanny, which was a cover for her as a secret agent. Under various code names like Corinne or Louise Leroy or La Petite Anglaise, which means the small English girl. And for the record, Hannie was also small. Violette received heavy military training, including how to jump parachute. She strained her ankle during her first attempt, but succeeded during the second. And she used the poem "The Life That I Have" to identify herself. Missions. Hannie would gather vital intelligence for the resistance. She would provide Jewish children with safe houses. She would bomb and attack railways, but most perilously and brutally, she would liquidate or kill Nazis and Dutch traitors. And she worked very close with two sisters, Truus and Freddy Overstegen, who were very young. They were only 16 and 14 at the beginning of the war, and they had already enlisted with the Council of Resistance in 1941. On some occasions, these women would use their youth, their beauty, and their femininity as a secret weapon. They would dress up nicely, go into bars, seduce high-ranking Nazi officers, lure them into the woods, and kill them. On other occasions, they would follow their targets on bicycles and shoot them. Violette was parachuted twice into Nazi-occupied France as an SOE agent, working as a courier and as a liaison officer. On April 5th, 1944, to gather important information in preparation of D-Day, and on her daughter's second birthday, to coordinate sabotaging communication lines. Dangerous. The missions were incredibly dangerous. Hannie had to dye her beautiful red hair black and wear spectacles made of window glass in order not to be recognized, and she would move from one hiding place to another. She had developed the remarkable habit of always combing her hair and powdering her nose just before the start of a mission because she wanted to die beautiful. Violette presented herself as being French, wearing French clothes, pretending to be a secretary on her first mission, and the widow of an antiques dealer during the second. Romance. Both women called for the most dangerous work after their beloved man died. For Hannie, this was her infatuation Jan Bonekamp, who had died during a mission that they had encountered together. For Violette, this was her husband, Etienne Szabo. Capture. For Hannie, time just ran out. She was arrested by the Nazis, imprisoned, held in solitary confinement, tortured. Violette, too, was incredibly unlucky when she was captured on June 10, 1944. After intense interrogation by the Sicherheitsdienst, the SD in Paris, she was transported to Ravensbrück concentration camp in Germany, late August 1944. She endured harsh labor and solitary confinement, dreaming of and plotting her escape. Execution. On April 17, 1945, Hannie was taken out of her prison cell, pushed into a car, and driven to the dunes in Overveen, where she was executed by the Nazis not even 3 weeks before the end of the war on May 5th. Violette was called for, together with Denise Bloch and Lillian Rolfe. All three found their deaths by execution on or around February 5th, 1945. Unmarked graves. The bodies of both Hannie and Violette were disposed of in unmarked graves. Hannie was reburied at the National Honorary Cemetery in the Netherlands on November 27, 1945. She is there as the only woman among 371 men. Violette's resting place remains unknown, but her official point of commemoration is the Commonwealth War Graves at Brookwood Memorial, Surrey. Royalty. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands was present during the reburial of Hannie Schaft. She posthumously called Hannie the icon of resistance against fascism. The 4-year-old Tanya received the George Cross on behalf of her mother in 1946. The London Gazette read, Madame Szabo gave an excellent example of courage and steadfastness. Overstegen sisters. Both Overstegen sisters survived the war, but continued their fight for recognition. They were haunted by their demons of their past and paid a huge price in the form of depression and post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD. They both lived long lives until the age of 92. Remembrance. After a long battle of recognition for the lives and resistance work of both Hannie, Truus and Freddy Overstegen due to their ties with the Communist Party and the fact that they were women, the National Hannie Schaft Foundation was erected in 1996. Together with Truus and Overstegen, I served the board of this foundation for over a decade. Each November, there is a commemoration for Hannie Schaft. Streets and schools are named after this particular icon, but unfortunately not a racehorse like with Violette. In 2000, Rosemary E. Rigby, MBE, founded the VioletteSzabo GC Society, as you can see here, to commemorate the life and resistance work of Violette each July. Museum. Hannie's pistol, her purse in which she carried her weapon, some jewelry, and her spectacles are portrayed in various museums. Numerous artifacts related to Violette's life are displayed here at this wonderful museum run by Rosemary E. Rigby, MBE. Sculpture. Truus Overstegen became a famous artist, and she made a sculpture, Woman in Resistance, depicting Hannie Schaft, which was unveiled in Haarlem in 1982. A bronze bust of Violette by sculptor Karen Newman was unveiled in Lambeth Palace in 2008. Movie. The story of Hannie Schaft became known through a wider audience through the movie The Girl with the Red Hair in 1981. Ditto can be said about the life and resistance work of Violette, whose story became known through the movie Carve Her Name with Pride, starring the famous Virginia McKenna, OBE, in 1958. Personal engagement. As a teenager, growing up in the same city as Hannie, luckily under completely different circumstances, I was fascinated by Hannie's story. She inspired me to write a paper in high school on her life, but also to choose my career path in international criminal law, so war crimes, and human rights. I had the honor of knowing, working with, and befriending both Truus and Freddy Overstegen sisters for more than 20 years. These women continue to inspire my life, both professionally and privately, as well as Violette Szabo now. World theater. What would the world look like without these courageous young women and their brave acts of resistance? And what would the world look like if they would still be alive today? Would Violette have spoiled Tanya with love and attention, and once Tanya would have flown the nest, would have become a famous actress or movie star? Or would she have pursued a career in fashion? Would Hannie have started a family? Would she have become a prosecutor at the International Criminal Court in The Hague? Present. We are gathered here today at a very special place. A place where Violette stayed with her cousins, where she played as a little girl, where she rode a horseback, a motorcycle even, and where she taught local children how to play rounders during her last visit in the first week of May 1944. Hannie and Violette would both have been 101 years old this July. Could you picture Hannie visiting Violette like I'm visiting now? There they are, sitting in the green, sipping their tea, exchanging their stories, and no doubt analyzing the war in Ukraine and other forgotten conflicts. Future. Fighting for a just and humane world does not have to be done alone, but razom, which is Ukrainian for together. I can almost hear those two old ladies over there muttering to the next generation in unison. For the peace of my years in the long green grass will be yours and yours and yours, which is the last paragraph of the poem that we just heard by Leo Marx that he wrote in 1943, who was also present here during the opening of the museum. Thank you. Dank u wel.